Larry says, just got caught up on the last 18 months of office hours. 18
Yeah,
months!
wow, that's dedication.
God. At 4 hours a pop, that's 60 hours. Larry, did you get laid off or do you have, he said it was a slog. Yeah, it was a slog doing
Yeah,
it.
I bet. It was a slog for us.
I feel sorry for you.
Wow. No, I
Did
guess
you
I
learn
get-
anything?
Oh, yeah. What was your favorite thing that you learned?
Yeah. What? Or just like a quick summary.
Well, we don't like replication. We don't do, SSAS, RS, IS.
He says it was all a fog. If you
It
learn
is for
one
us
thing,
too.
that's what the cloud is. I would hope that if you learned one thing, it would be slow in the app, fast in SSMS.
There you go.
Please, for the love of God.
We haven't even started yet and we mentioned it. Jeez.
We're early on in this one. Well, Larry says he learned that tats don't mean mean.
Oh,
okay.
yes.
Yeah.
Eric is a cuddly guy.
Big teddy bear. Thomas says, hey, Eric, don't forget that the Big Bopper died that day, too. Yeah. Nope, we got nothing there. Nestor says most of what Larry learned is probably obsolete by now since it was over 18 months. I don't know. I think on my graves, on my tombstone, they're going to print, please see slow in the app, fast in SSMS.
It's going to be TempDB is a public toilet.
Yeah. Ooh, which I don't pull this out often enough.
Maybe his gravestone should just be a porta potty.
Oh, that's
right?
amazing.
Someone 3D printed me. I wish I would have gotten her name. 3D printed me
awesome.
a public toilet. Yeah, I'd never owned anything
says
3D
10
printed
on it.
before. Yeah, it says, what's it say? Be careful or use wisely.
Use wisely.
Who made that for you? I forget.
Somebody in Boston training class attendee. And I was like, wow. Some people were like, oh, is it a TARDIS? And I said, no. I said, well, wait. I said, well, where did you get a 3D model of a public toilet? Did that many people print public toilets? She goes, no, I built the whole thing myself.
Oh, my goodness.
That's dedication.
Yeah.
Yeah, Doctor Who gets a time machine and Brent gets a public toilet. That's fair. That's about right.
Oh. Larry says he kept hearing of his 18 months of listening to us. He said, I kept hearing the same things over and over. The problem set is surprisingly small. You know what's funny? So there's this passionate argument going on in the database community about whether or not DBAs will be replaced by automation. And I think a huge chunk of it probably could be, or just a few product improvements. Imagine if they just let us, for example, turn off plan caching. This is going to sound insane. But what if they just let it build a new execution plan every time a query came in? That's what Guy Glancer of SQL Server Radio advocates. He's like, give me the ability to turn off parameter sniffing, but build a new plan every time it comes in. Don't just, optimize for unknown. Build a brand new query plan every time. He's like, for some servers, I'm okay with that CPU burn. I'm like, oh, I can see that making some people's lives a lot easier. Setting maxstop appropriately, a lot of that stuff could fix things.
If they can figure out, oh, never mind.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, if they can figure out how to set TempDB files based on CPU count, then why not set maxstop? Why not?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
At least as the default.
Yeah.
Instead of a 0 and then 1.
Or cost threshold, do any of those. Yeah, it would be way better.
I would like a dynamic cost threshold.
Mm.
And explain more about what you mean by that, because you wrote about this in a blog post.
Well, no, this is a totally different thing.
Oh, no,
okay. That would be sliding scale parallelism. That would be where, the more a query costs, the higher maxstop would go. So at low cost, it would get a couple cores, and the higher the query cost, the more cores would be available to it. I was just thinking dynamic cost threshold, where SQL would keep an eye on your plan cache and figure out a median, and then say, okay, queries over this, and because they're doing all this automated performance tuning, and they're doing these adaptive plans, and I just think it would be a nice additional feature to say, oh, this plan when run serially took longer. So we're going to run it in parallel because it's faster and we have those resources available. So it would be, it would be sort of dynamic in that sense, and that we would be able to sort of jigger on the fly whether something's going to go parallel or not.
Or learn your workloads based on time of day. If it knows that after hours there's not much load on a system and a report query comes in, dedicate the whole server to it. I don't care. Nothing else is going on this thing.
Yeah, because it beats the crap out of resource governor.
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea, Eric. You should code it. Go ahead. Submit a pull request. There you go.
Pull request.
I think it has something to do with Pluralsight. I don't know how it works. All right, Larry.
That's the hard way in then.
I can't even imagine. Larry says, in Paul Randall's 2012 article, Trimming the Transaction Log Fat, he makes a case for index fragmentation slowing performance due to large numbers of page splits caused by index fragmentation. Is reorg sufficient to avoid this problem, or is this a case for rebuilding indexes?
Neither.
And why?
Because that's never going to be your problem. That's never going to be the thing that makes your server make or break. It's one of those weird edge case optimizations where if you have nothing to do on the rainiest day of the year, you might want to say, okay, I'll look at this, but that's never going to be the server's main problem. That's never going to be what's slowing you down the most. You're going to have a whole host of other crap going on that you're not even thinking of.
Yeah. Look at your top weight type and focus on what the top weight type is. Otherwise, you're kind of shuffling deck chairs on the Titanic.
Your top weight type is never going to be page splits.
Page split EX.
I mean, you could always go ask Paul on his free webcast.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. It's every. Oh, wait. No, but he does. They answer if you go to SQL Skills and you can contact. They will answer any question that you send over. It doesn't matter how hard, how you can put as much evidence as you want in there. They'll do it all totally for free. We will not. We will not.
But I will send you right to Stack Exchange.
Yes. Yes, but he is super friendly and he loves answering questions like that, so he'll be all over it. Or if you're on Twitter too, you can ask him.
Twitter.
That's probably beyond 140. You probably want to send it an email, but yeah, free consulting via Paul from email. Check it out. And now they're going to get like 50,000 emails. Drag me into an alley and
let's put their email address up on the screen so everyone has it. Free consulting.
Oh, I have a good story there. I'll tell that.
Until you don't have to spell Jonathan Cahias as his last name when you send it. It's just John at SQL Skills.
Yeah. And at least Cahias' last name is pronounceable. I've heard like 3 times in the last 2 weeks where someone has said Hola Allengren.
Yeah.
Hola Allengren.
Or Oli Allengren. Allen said what?
Tammy says, thank you all for your generous support. I'm sure you guys must have donated her query bucks or something. I'm trying to come up with some test cases for SQL 2012 availability groups with 2 sync nodes at my primary data center and 2 asynchronous nodes at the secondary DR data center. I'll be testing manual failovers and surprise restarting of nodes. What else should I test?
Network outages.
Network, yeah, definitely dropping the line between the 2 sites and see if you've got quorum and voting set up properly.
Pulling quorum disks would be another good one.
Yeah.
I like that. Patching is like on.
Oh yeah, patching.
Patch Tuesday, people have a tendency to reboot multiple machines at once. Reboot 3 machines and see how that works out for you.
And then your last test, do a pretend that the primary site is gone and do a manual failover to the other site, because you'll have to do the different command at this point, the force allow data loss command in order to do that failover, since primary is no longer available.
Ooh,
but I do that at the end because you won't be able to continue testing without resetting everything up again.
Oops.
And I would go the other way too. After you force failover with allow data loss, then assume that the secondary data center site is live. Figure out how to go synchronize going back the other way too.
I would say one of the most important things you can do is make sure your agent jobs behave as expected when you fail over. Make sure that they either when they're on secondary, they're not running or trying to run too much, or make sure that when they become primaries that they pick up and start running as expected.
Let's see, next up, Larry says, oh no, that's his, he says, after he caught up on the last 18 months of office hours, he said he heard a lot about Azure infrastructure as a service disks being slow. I recall Microsoft announcing doubling the speed, but I didn't hear anything from your team about that. Is disk speed still a major issue on Azure? It's really funny. It was just discussed in the MCM mailing list, and people are doing tests on that, and it's still a major issue for folks. It still comes down to your VM speed or your VM type, and then the number of disks that you use.
And it's not even just Azure. That's just how these cloud providers are. Providers are. The cheaper your company is going to spend, the worse your I/O is going to be.
I kind of like the way Google does it, where the bigger disk you buy, the faster it goes up to a certain point. Just like.
Well, I mean, that's the same thing with serverless, right? It's the higher memory you have, the more CPU you have. I mean, it has nothing to do with disk, but it's the same kind of concept with that.
Tied in. It's just one slider. You're just moving one slider and faster as your credit card gets larger. Joseph, we'll just say Joseph. Joseph says, I'm seeing SPIDs of -3 in my database. They disappear on their own. Should I be concerned?
I was actually Googling this while we were talking to see what -3 is. -2 is, because I knew that these were abnormal things. -2 is orphaned distributed transactions, because it doesn't know what that other thing is or something like that. But I couldn't find anything on -3, but it's going to be something weird. Should you be concerned about it? I would say no, but it's probably something weird that's happening. So maybe contact Microsoft to see exactly what the -3 type is, because once it goes negative, I mean, these are system SPIDs, but once they go negative, I think they have very special meaning.
He says deferred transaction. Holy cow.
Yikes.
What does it even mean?
Yeah, I mean, unless it's like blocking or doing something weird, I would probably
yeah, exactly.
How would you
know?
know?
Did the transaction go to the upside down or what? I don't know.
Queries coming from Australia. How would you know if it's blocking anybody else?
You could use a free store procedure like SP blitz who, or you could use SP who is active. You could log SP who is active to a table. Tara has a post about that. If you want to Google Tara Kaiser, log SP who is active to a table.
Oh, yes. I've got a great
famous blog post.
No, it wasn't that one. It was the TempDB one. That was the big one.
Right.
Oh, wow. Yeah, the recompile thing. JH asks, if I'm going to refresh a development database from production, do you just back up production and restore over development? Or is it better to drop the development database first and then restore over the top of it? I'm okay with either of those.
Yeah. Clean slate either way. I have to read it again.
I know.
Okay, so it actually, the recommendation is to leave it in place and restore over it, because SQL Server can reuse the files. So if you don't have IFI set up, it's file initialization. It's going to have to, when you do the restore and the database doesn't exist, it's going to have to, grow out those files, those data files. So if IFI is configured, it probably doesn't matter which way you go with, but it's recommended that you keep the database in place, restore on top of it, and SQL Server can reuse that allocation, that disk allocation, I believe it is.
Can it do that with the log file too? That would be an interesting test.
I don't know, probably. I bet you it can. And so that's probably faster since IFI doesn't play a part.
Or if like the log file is bigger, can it already use this part?
Yeah, I wonder.
grow a little bit rather than the whole thing.
Yeah.
I know, I want to say that it can do that because that would be so cool, but then I think about all the other things that I think will work because they'd be so cool. And I'm like, nope, doesn't work.
I would also ask
No, go ahead.
No, I would also ask your devs and your testers if they have any data there that they want to keep, because maybe they're using for test runs and things like that they haven't scripted out. I've never been a big fan of moving production over into a dev environment.
Yeah, exactly.
I just, one, you have a problem of now I have production data which may need to be encrypted or removed or whatever. I've got to handle that. But the second thing is I now have some other test stuff that should be in there that probably is not in the production database. Some outlying test cases or things that shouldn't happen but we're testing for anyway. Those type of things really need to be in the database, and it probably won't be in your prod. So I'm not a big fan of going over production, but that's another level of development that you just need to hit and work towards. It's a tough thing to get to, but it's worth it when you get there.
Right, but that's the developer's
has their own
responsibility.
environment.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, a developer's responsibility. But if the DBA says I'm not restoring production, then they'll get on that, right?
Yeah, so have a separate environment for this restore, not over dev is what he's saying. Still do it, but not over dev.
Yeah.
Or just have like a post-deployment script that'll create the stuff that developers need.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm also a fan of just telling management, all right, look, if we restore from production over into development, then anybody can take all our data and sell it to, I always say the Chinese. I don't know why I say the Chinese. I should say the Russians these days. It seems to be sexier. Or Google, whatever. JH says he follows up with a recently strange thing is that I used to restore over a database, but weirdly, a couple of tables were not in sync. Was that maybe a bug in SQL 2014?
Don't blame it on
way.
No.
No way. No.
You did something wrong there.
Yeah. We won't tell anyone, JH. JH, whose full name is. Hannah asks, optimize for ad hoc. Is there any time when this is a bad idea to turn on other than when all of your queries are ad hoc? When shouldn't I turn it on?
Kimberly Tripp answered this question in 2014 at PASS. I remember it specifically because someone was asking. It was either 2014 or 2011, but the only edge case, and she said, I think it was from Kalen had come up with the edge case, but again, Kimberly talked about it. She said the only time where you wouldn't do this is when all queries are going to be used twice and only twice. So it's either, usually the query is going to be used once or multiple times, but if all queries are only used twice and never again, then don't enable this because there's no benefit to it at that point.
One thing I kind of hate about that setting is it messes up, well, it doesn't mess up its cache, but it doesn't give you a plan that you can analyze. So if you run a query and you're like, can't figure out why it was slow this one time, but it's just a stub and you can't do anything with it. There's no information about it, which kind of sucks.
I've never seen a time where I turn this on and my server's suddenly okay. Like this was the thing that crossed the finish line. I've seen a lot of people turn it on by default and I don't have a problem with it, but it's just, I've never seen somebody go, oh, thank God we turned on optimize for ad hoc. Now everything's fast again.
Listen, we actually had that come up 3 jobs ago. So I wasn't the primary DB on it, so I don't remember the exact system, but it had a massive procedure cache, and enabling this resolved an issue there. But it was one specific system, and I've supported over 1,000 servers in the past.
And usually when it is, it's that some bozo is building strings continuously.
Strings are, this was a third-party application, so who knows?
Yeah. That's where something like forced parameterization would help.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know that option was available. Do you guys know what version that came out in, or has it been around for a while?
Ooh,
2005, I think. Either 2005, maybe.
This probably was a 2008 system, I bet. And maybe we just didn't know about it. I mean, honestly, I didn't know about forced parameterization until maybe last year with you guys.
It's one of those hammers that you hardly ever see used, and when you need it, it's amazing.
It's solved, I think, 3 recent clients of mine. One was massive performance improvement, and then two other ones, it was noticeable.
Wasn't one of them was like 80, 90% CPU and it dropped to like nothing?
It dropped to under 50, and they were so excited. So we did it right then and there. I think that one was late last year, something like that. That was the one that it resolved their primary pain point, which was awesome. And of course, I was the one on the call, so I got all the credit. You guys were the ones that told me to go do it. But I'm just the one on the call.
Trust us, it's the force. You're now knighted with amazing.
That's when I learned about it. It was right there. Good.
Yeah. And Richie just sent over in Slack, your PC ran into a problem, so Richie just disappeared because he flew screen. Richie,
I had to go through an hour of updates yesterday. It was horrible. And then so that was on my laptop, and then my Surface did it for like an hour and a half or something. So there's some kind of massive update.
Was it that Creator edition?
Yeah, it was Creator.
Oh,
so did that get forced on everybody?
Yeah.
They keep trying to get me to install it on my my desktop server. Fun fact, I had to use Windows 10 on my fun desktop server because Windows Server 2016 didn't have the right driver for my network card. So my network card would not work with Windows Server 2016. It worked beautifully with Windows 10. And I searched high and low for this damn driver.
I have to ask now too, there's like a bunch of questions in the queue, but I'm going to interrupt and ask one of my own. So because speaking of your desktop, so
Yes.
our hardware budgets are coming up. So I say coming up like I'm the kind of person who shops that far out. So you're like, woo! Have you guys thought about what you're going to do for your hardware budgets for next year?
I was actually just on Amazon today thinking about it because I thought about it on the cruise. Like, I've got a bit of money left over. So I only bought my office chair. So there's a bit of leftover money. But so I was just going to browse the electronics section and see what's out there. I don't know. I probably need a desktop, but I don't know.
Yeah, works fast enough.
So for me, I think I have like $500 left on this year's.
Oh, yeah.
Brent's like, what?
Surprised, yeah. But you drain that thing dry.
But I think I think ideally what I'd like to do is replace my two 27s with one big monitor, and then get one of those desk risers so I can have like a sort of modified standing desk, because I need that L shape sort of how my office is to keep all my crap on it. I don't have awesome feng shui office like Brent does. So I'd probably get one of those desk risers so I can just kind of boost everything up and just have one monitor so we don't have to worry about going all fire.
I thought for sure when you said, and then I'm going to get, I thought you were going to get like Tim Radney has another set of racks up above the monitor. So you could
it's like an 80s drum set in here, just monitors.
Oh, God. All right, so let's see here. Larry asks, some other high-profile DBAs have offered, and he's talking about Paul and Kim, have offered time for local pass remote chapter presentations. Is that something you guys do as well? Yeah, absolutely. Just go to brentozar.com and brentozar.com and click contact up at the top, and you can send in requests for presentations. Keep in mind, like, we usually only do them either during working hours or stuff that's close to working hours. Now, we have different working hours on the coast, so that makes it a little bit easier for some folks, but it's tough for us to abandon the families too late at night. So plus, I'm also trying to nicely say I go to bed at 7:30, 8 o'clock.
Grandpa Ozar.
Can confirm.
West Coast time.
Can confirm. The next up, Erik says, we're looking at implementing an enterprise-wide BI offering. We're currently looking at the Microsoft BI stack. Can you recommend a consultant resource that has knowledge of the entire BI stack? He says Adam Saxton comes to mind. Not the whole stack. I mean, like I talked to Andy Leonard for SSIS, Steph Locke for the analytics part of it, like R, Python. Analysis services is prodata.ie out of Ireland. It's Bob Duffy out of Ireland. Is there anybody else? Reporting services, Jessica Moss. Who else? Any other BI consultants we know?
Oh, God.
Well, he doesn't do BI anymore.
Scottish.
Jen Stirrup.
Jen Stirrup, there we go.
Jen Stirrup, yeah. Oh, I always forget about her. Yeah. I'm not sure who else.
It's like I know this.
Oh, God, it's Scottish. So there you got that. Let's see here. Next time, MM says, as far as production data in development, do you have any suggestions for masking software, such as Delphix? We do have, if you search for masking on our site, I have a post about why masking is so hard and some of the things you should look for. So check out that post first. Next up, Larry asks, where are you located? I'll let each of you guys answer that.
Hearts unknown.
I'm in San Diego, California.
Miami, Florida.
New York-ish.
And Chicago. Larry also says, seeing you guys for the first time after only listening for a long time, two things were a surprise. Kara is much younger than I was expecting.
I was just replying to him because I wasn't sure you're going to get to that one.
Oh, what'd you say?
I just, we're all around the same age. I do look young, but I'm not. I've been, I've been a DBA for full-time DBA for almost 20 years. So you can do the math.
Mm-hmm.
She started when she was 9.
Yeah. Became a full-time DBA in 1999.
Yeah.
I did graduate from college first, so.
He says he had the impression that Richie was of Chinese heritage. Yeah, so now that you're on the webcast, you understand that he's Italian, but it's hard to see that.
Totally Italian. Maybe a little bit of Russian. You just never know.
JH asks, is it correct that if I'm going to create a view's indexes on a view, that the view also needs with schema binding?
Yeah.
Yeah, and a whole bunch of other rules.
No way around that. Yeah, there's no top if you want to, no outer joins, no cross apply. If you want to, if any columns that you want to aggregate can't be nullable. There's just so much crap with index views. It's like,
but I always thought schema binding was a good idea anyway on views.
And functions.
Yeah.
Larry says, are there any risks to adding SPN registrations for existing database engines that are running with Active Directory service accounts that didn't have the permissions to register their own SPNs?
No, I've had service accounts that did not have the permission. We had to beg and beg and beg to get it eventually. And sometimes we just see errors in the error log that couldn't register, and just SPN issues, but no
handshake failed.
Yeah.
Crap. So glad I don't have to deal with that. Because those are always those, like, you'd always get those emails like in the middle of the night, and you wake up and be like, Sturdy 18, what the? Oh, it's that. Going back to bed.
Kerberos. Doug says, I have a development SQL Server environment where production is restored every night, and some days in development we receive insert, update, and delete failures due to set options have incorrect settings, like a RIF abort. The application isn't changed, I swear, only the database. What might be causing this for some restores and not others? Wow.
I don't know that this is a restore issue. I wonder if it's just, this sounds like an application issue to me.
And maybe it is in this. I wonder if the application is connecting and when their database isn't available, they're ending up in the wrong database maybe, and that they have the wrong set of RIF abort sessions in there maybe, or their connection gets reset and doesn't set the right ones. I like where you're going with that, but I can't think of where it would do that either. And then the last question in the queue, Michael says, I have a linked server from on-premises to Azure, and he's getting an error that access to the remote server is denied because no login mapping exists. I tried a provider string thing, and I have no luck. And we don't have any luck there either.
No, you're luckless.
I would post that on dba.stackexchange.com. I don't think there's a lot of people doing that, the linked server piece, because, man, as Jeremiah used to say, hello latency.
I mean, linked servers are slow enough just to another server that's sitting next to it. Just imagine going to the cloud. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Nope.
Yeah.
That's about just as fast as I drink my wine.
Yes.
Which is very slowly, everybody.
Very slowly.
Very slowly.
Richie is not on the same caliber as us.
No, and I don't even try to keep up.
Right. Doesn't want to be.
Well, that's good because someone's going to have to be the liver donor in this.
Yeah. Couple more company retreats and we're in trouble.
staring at Richie like he's a buffet, like I'm going to take that part. Kidney.
Larry, we should probably motivate him to jog and eat healthy too, just so they have real healthy organs along the way.
Yeah, can I have a second glass of wine? No, you cannot. I need that liver later.
Good living. Larry says, I just heard that Microsoft's newest corporate conference has almost no mention of on-premises. Instead, they're defining the IT marketplace as just cloud and Azure. And also they predict 90% migration to the cloud by 2025. Comments?
They were high as hell.
That's exactly what they want. They want that.
Yeah, that's why they're not mentioning on-premise.
They want you to, hey, we want that constant money flow coming in. Pay us a little bit. 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 That's exactly where they're going. If you noticed over the past 6 months to a year, the dev advocates for Azure, they've been hiring like mad.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like insane. So you could tell that they're really ramping up and trying to get more people jumping onto the Azure bandwagon. I think it's a great platform. I don't really have that big of a problem with it. But if I have a legacy application that I spent $3 million building it, and I'm a small to medium-sized company, am I going to spend that effort now, another $3 million to dump it into Azure? Probably not. It works. Why rewrite it?
If there was a cloud in that room, I bet I know what it smelled like.
The other thing, I mean, their job is to market. I mean, they need to market things, so they want to teach things as if they're the already happening. Artificial intelligence is taking over everything. You won't need staff anymore. Put your 20s in the front of the machine. You know, the same thing as they used to say, SQL Server is a self-tuning database. You won't need any help. Things will just work. You'll put in queries in raw English, and the answers will come out the other side. You know, it's the same thing Cortana does.
What you want. I'll give it to you.
Anybody remember RAD development, rapid application development? Was it fast? Not really. It spent the same amount of time.
Did anything get developed? No.
No.
Ulcers, maybe?
Yeah. And it's not that we don't believe in the cloud. We're huge proponents of the cloud. It's awesome and fantastic. You just got to take some of those things with a grain of salt.
The cloud has great fits for a lot of different applications, a lot of different situations, and I'm totally cool with it. Like, you know, take the DBA responsibility away from people who don't want to be DBAs, who can't be DBAs. They have other things to do, and I'm like, go with it. That rules. But you know, it's not realistic to expect the entire world to shoehorn into Azure's cloud or Microsoft's cloud or any cloud. Some people need that physical landing space.
Mm-hmm. Let's see here. Larry says, we have a vendor that uses 4-part names and stored procedures. For those of you who haven't seen that, server and database and schema and table. We installed the app using a SQL alias, but then the references use the alias. I added a second server definition, linked servers. He's got all kinds of questions in there. I would just push back on the vendor and go, what the hell are you doing with 4-part names? Seriously, what sense does that make? That is horrific. And if you want, like, send examples of those queries to us and copy the vendor and just go politely, hey, what might be the drawbacks of this? And then we can elaborate on it. If you're comfortable doing it publicly, you could post it at Stack Exchange, and then you'll see. But it's, you know, that's tough to do with vendors.
I would say that what that reminds me of is a question that I fumbled on when I had food poisoning a couple weeks ago, when you asked me what could cause the same store procedure to have different plans, and all those different names and references would have all sorts of different plans attached to them, because that's different. They would have different hashes.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks a lot, everybody, for hanging out with us. There were a few long questions we didn't get to, like multi-paragraph questions. Go ahead and post those over at dba.stackexchange.com. You're going to get amazing answers out of there because you put the time into building a really big, clear question. And then we will see you guys next week at office hours. Adios, everybody.
Bye.
Goodbye.